Hey, you may have Facebook friends or work friends, but do you have true best friends in your life? We'll find out now why female friendships are so important as we welcome the author of The 50-50 Friendship Flow, Life Lessons from and for My Girlfriends, life coach Shari Leid. Thank you so much for visiting us today.
Yes, it was a great drive down this morning from Seattle to Portland.
Pacific Northwesterners.
Yes.
We're happy you made the trip. So let's talk about this concept of female friendships. We know they're important, but sometimes it's hard to make time for our friends.
Yes, and they are so important, especially for women.
Yeah.
You know, we're familiar with the stress response, fight or flight. For women, we're kind of wired with tend and befriend. That's another theory. And that is when we're under stress, we tend to, tend to our young, and we befriend our friends. We look for support and advice and just this companionship.
And we've heard a lot over the last couple of years of the epidemic of loneliness in our country, and sometimes you just have to reach out even when it might be uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, and it takes practice. It really takes practice. I think nothing beats actual face-to-face time.
Yeah.
And the key to start it is really carving out time, whether it's once a week, once a month, or once a quarter. But make that a practice. Carve out time for your friends for that actual face-to-face time.
Yeah, it is so important. Can you tell me more about kind of changing your definitions or expectations of having a healthy social circle as we try to carve out that time and what it looks like?
Yes, I think sometimes we put so much pressure on what a friend should be.
Yeah.
And, a friend should pick up my kids or be there for me, answer the phone when I call.
Yeah.
And the Webster definition of friendship really is simple. It's a mutual respect for one another. And when we think of that, definition, we let go of the demands on ourselves and others to be friends. We let go of those checklists. It really opens us up for even more friendships.
Oh yeah, and you can have friends under different circumstances that sort of serve you in different ways. Like a work friend, I think. I get so much benefit out of my friends that I only see when I'm here, but I think that those relationships help me thrive as well.
Yes, and friendships of different ages too. And there was a woman I had met last year in Arizona, 93 years old. Smart, steady on her feet.
Yeah.
And of course, most of her friends were younger than her. And she constantly, though, makes friends. And it made me think.
That's amazing.
Yes, and even, she lives, I guess, on the top of a hill, and there are these young men, 40-something-year-old men that would hike up, and she started inviting them in for coffee every week.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And it made me think that's the secret to staying young, is continue to make friends.
Yeah. And is there a secret, too, that cultivating to find deeper connections when you feel like maybe there's somebody that you click with, but you want to say, hey, maybe we could have a really close friendship? How do you put yourself out there when you're a little bit nervous sometimes?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is being a little bit vulnerable with people. And when I say vulnerable, I don't mean, throw your drama at them, but share something of yourself a little bit. And you let it naturally happen. For instance, I saw somebody with a OSU Beaver sweatshirt on, and I actually am a Husky UW Husky fan. And I said, well, thank goodness you're not a duck. Sorry, ducks. but that shared what school I went to, and it just opened up conversation. And so it's that idea of not having a definition of friendship with everything they have to do, but also sharing a little piece of yourself.
That's all it takes. One quick moment can really spark something. And what about at different times when maybe your friend is needing more from you in a certain season, but then later on you might be the friend in need too, and just kind of be open to that give and take?
Yeah, and that's true. That goes back to taking away those definitions of what you should do and the pressures on yourself, and just know that when you're open like that, you can also learn so much from your friends when they're in times of need. And that's the difference too with the different ages of friends.
For sure.
That might be your journey, the next month or the next year.
Yeah, I think about that too, having friends who are older and can kind of coach you through certain experiences that they've seen before in a different form, but also younger friends. And when you have people look to you and you go, oh my gosh, wait a minute, I have something helpful I can share, that kind of makes you feel good inside as well. Yeah,
and even I've learned that with the younger generation as well, don't write them off, because there's so much actually we can learn. I say we because I'm in my mid-50s, but that I can learn from somebody, let's say in their late 20s, early 30s, the different perspective, and just being open to the younger generation and realizing they have something to offer as well.
Do you have advice for dealing with friends online when maybe you feel like things look picture perfect and sometimes we can feel jealous, or I'm not as good as them, kind of taking those intrusive thoughts away at times?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of women who deal with this, not only with themselves, but also their teenage daughters.
For sure.
And I always say, first start with you, you know, and you develop kind of develop more a sense of self, and look at that first. And then from there, you know, once you develop a sense of self, those other things, looking at other people's pictures, their, you know, picture perfect life, you don't get that envy quite as much.
That's true. Start from within.
Yeah.
We know social media isn't real all the time.
Yeah, and we can't control that, right? We can't control what's out there.
That's so true. Hey, how about making friends as an adult? It can become really hard at times if you're not clicking with people at work and you're not really out there socially as much. Do you have advice on getting people out of their shell in that way? Yeah,
so the first thing was the scheduling, right? Making time and being intentional to make that time for it. The other thing, the great thing about being an adult, especially if you get out of those, you know, kind of early adult years where you're super busy with maybe family and starting a career, when you get towards those midlife years, you actually have maybe a little bit more time. You know yourself better. Start taking classes, go to a gym. If you're in a smaller town, maybe a volunteer organization, and be open, let go of that definition again of friendship. And chances are, if you're going there, you know, several times, it'll naturally happen.
You already share an interest with the people who are there in the first place. You've got something to talk about right away.
You do, and that vulnerable thing, you know, and vulnerable, it doesn't have to be throwing your drama out there. It could be something else. Oh, glad you're not duck.
You know? Creak the door open a little bit. You don't have to share everything right away. Have you had anyone have success stories on things like internet, like Bumble BFF and things like that? I've heard of some women saying, oh my gosh, I moved to a new city and I found my new bestie online. I never would have known that she was even there.
Yes, and I personally have had success that way as well.
That's awesome.
And so that's a great way. I think of online as sort of the nice padding around, like if you have let's say an expensive vase and you pad it around with all the stuffing, that keeps, you know, the vase is the in-person.
Yes.
That's the special, but the stuffing also is important.
Yeah.
So I think of the online as kind of the stuffing, and then it keeps the vase intact. And you start to unpack that, and you know, you meet in person. But yeah, a lot of people, including me, have started online with friendships.
That's great. Great advice. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Yeah, it's been great to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down to Portland.
Yeah, and I don't mind the ducks as much as I'm saying I do. I have a few friends from
We're
there.
a friend to all here. Hey, we'll have more information on our website about the 50/50 Friendship Flow at katu.com. And we'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.